So in the last meeting, when we learned the modern art movement after avant-garde. So we saw the meaning of avant-garde. That means the newest and latest and the most advanced art. So again, so before the avant-garde, the modern art movements are still focused on the observational art style. But after avant-garde, thanks to the photographs development, many of artists sought to the non-representational style of art. So we saw Fauvism with the Henri Matisse, and Expressionism. And we saw two artists. One is Edward Munch, and the other one is Vasily Kandinsky. Also, there was Cubism after avant-garde. The most famous artist was Pablo Picasso. And so getting into the wars, there was a surrealism for the resistance of the world. Also, Dada. As a Dadaist artist, we saw Marcel Duchamp, who made the ready-made art styles. So today, we're going to see the rest of the art movement, surrealism and the idealism. Surrealism was formulated in Paris in the 1920s. Like Dada, surrealism was not a style, but a way of life. Fascinated by the theories of psychologist Sigmund Freud, who was then setting out his revolutionary ideas in Vienna, the surrealists appreciated the power of dreams, the mysterious of the unconscious, and the lure of the bizarre, the irrational, and the incongruous and the marvelous. So I will show you two surrealist artists today. The first artist is Salvador Dali. Dali was a Spanish surrealist artist, and Dali was a skilled draftsman and best known for the striking and bizarre images in his work. His painterly skills are often attributed to the influence of the Renaissance masters, which means his painting's technique is very realistic, but the theme of the work is not realistic. So this painting's title is Persistence of Memory in 1931, which is he is one of the most recognizable works of surrealism. So everyone, look at this painting. What you can see in this painting.
It looked like watches.
Yes, there are watches. How does it look like?
But the watches, like the time is melting away.
Yes. Can you guess what does that mean?
What time is wasting away or something like that?
Maybe, yeah. Very good. I love that. And who else?
It could be like a sands of time theme, and it's saying that time is dissolving.
Oh, very nice. I love that too. So, and look at the background. What's the setting of this work of art? Where are the clocks? melting.
Right, so it's in nature.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it looks like, something like a desert somewhere, right?
Right.
Mhm, mhm.
Like that could either be soil or that could be dark sand.
Uh, yeah. And can you guess what it is? The white creature at the
It
bottom.
kind of looks like the head and neck of some kind of bird, but then again, it looks like a woman's eyelashes. So I'm not really sure.
Very good. Very good guess. Yes, it's very close. So the iconography may refers to a dream. It looks like a dream that Dali himself had experienced. And the clocks may symbolize the passing of time as one experiences it in sleep, or the persistence of time in the eyes of the dreamer. The orange clock on the at the bottom left at the painting is covered with in ants. A common theme in Dali's work represent the decay. The ant means decay something, particularly when they attack a gold watch. They seem like grotesquely organic. And the monstrous, the flash creature dropped across the painting center is at once alien and familiar. An approximation of Dali's own face in profile. Its long eyelashes seem disturbingly insect-like or even sexual. As does what may or may not be a tongue oozing from his nose like a fat snail. So we're gonna watch a video about this painting in detail.
At the Museum of Modern Art, there's this tiny painting by Salvador Dali, which is the painting that everybody wants to see. That and Starry Night by Van Gogh are the two stars. And I thought it would be really interesting to talk about why this painting is so wildly popular. So this is The Persistence of Memory by Salvador.
And here, I understand why people kind of connect to it now. I mean, anybody who's ever tried to make an album for a rock band is inspired by Salvador Dali. There's also this kind of fun of what are you looking at? He's really playing with reality. You know, it's kind of like a visual brain teaser.
Is that it? Is it so popular? Is it on album cover art because it's this attack on the rational, and that's such a seductive idea?
Yeah, it's mind trippy. I like the way you phrase it. It's an attack on the rational. I mean, I guess there might be more to it. That's my sense.
You know, you were talking about album cover art and posters on, you know, maybe a dorm room. And what's interesting is that these artists took these ideas really seriously. This was surrealism. This was painted in 1931. Dali, this Spanish artist, this Catalan artist, had just come to Paris and had joined the surrealist group.
I'm assuming he's considered significant because he was the first person to essentially do dreamscapes and these, as you mentioned, attack on the rational.
When you walk into this painting visually, you enter into this really deep, open, and lonely space. And it's this really quiet image.
Yeah, it's kind of this desert scape, ignoring the melting clocks for a moment. You feel that, okay, if you were in this landscape, yes, time really does not really carry a lot of weight. You could just kind of wither there and die and no one would care. Even that kind of water in the background, there's no waves in it. It's like they've had time to settle down. There's literally no activity.
There's this unbearable sense of quiet. There is almost no movement. And I think it does feel very desert-like, very hot. Literally, time has melted, right? But we have this absurd environment. We do have this very naturalistic rendering, but the things that are being rendered are not naturalistic at all. You mentioned the dead tree on the left, but it's growing out of something that seems clearly man-made, or at least geometric, a tabletop perhaps. You have ants that seem to be eating and attracted to a piece of metal as opposed to a piece of rotted flesh.
Oh, that's what that is. I couldn't fully make it out. Okay, so they're eating away at a timepiece. That's fascinating.
And of course, you have the drooping clocks. And that's such an interesting and evocative idea because time is something that is so regimented. Time is something that rules us, that is so associated with the industrial culture that we live in. And here, it responds to the environment as we respond to the environment.
Well, one, you have that tabletop, and there's another one in the background. And even the way that the light is set up, especially that cliff, it looks like it's sunset. So it's kind of like, hey, just another day has passed. Who cares?
Now, there are some identifiable things. I mean, for all of the absurdity and for all of the impossibility of what we're seeing, there are some things that our historians have recognized. The cliffs in the back are, we think, the cliffs of the Catalonian coast in northern Spain, where Dali is from. And so this is his childhood, perhaps. Some art historians have concluded that that strange figure, almost a profile face, can you just make out an eye with extremely long lashes and perhaps a tongue under a nose?
This is the whole optical illusion part of Dali. Yeah, I thought it was like a blanket, but now I completely see the eyelashes. I thought it was a duck for a second too. I see the eyelashes and the top of the nose.
Yeah, Dali does that funny thing where one object can actually be several things at once, sometimes really convincingly. Some art historians think this is his face, but elusive and very much a kind of dream.
I mean, that goes back to the category of this is more of that kind of door move, optical illusion type art.
Well, that's right. Surrealism posited that the rational world that we have so much faith in was perhaps not worthy of all of that faith, that the irrational was just as important, but was something that we had sublimated, something that we had tried to drive out of our life. And the way that these artists and writers thought about it was if only they could retrieve the world of the dream. Some of the artists had read Freud, some of them had only heard sort of secondhand accounts of Freud. But the idea that the dream was a place where the irrational mind came to the fore unrestricted.
This is something that I guess often confronts me is even the notions that how we perceive what we think as objective reality is really based on how our brain is wired. We see these causes and effects. We see linear time. This is how humans are wired. I mean, I think that's what's fun about these type of things. It kind of says, well, you know, look, there's different forms of reality, and who are we as creatures that are wired one particular way to be all that judgmental about what's real?
When people have looked at this painting, they have sometimes, and I think unconvincingly, tried to link it to Feinstein's earlier ideas of the
Time dilation and
exactly. And the time was not, in fact, a strict thing. But I think there's more evidence that Dali is thinking about ideas of a philosopher whose name is Bergson, who thought about time as something that was not simply what struck on a clock, but that there was a kind of human time that was more subjective and that expanded and contracted according to our experience.
time is this thing that sometimes scares us because we completely don't understand it, even though it's kind of the most fundamental component of our existence. We fundamentally don't understand it, and we try to measure it out. We try to constrain it, define it in some way that makes sense to us. Yeah, actually, I think that's what this piece is maybe trying to do. Is that like these clocks are stupid. These are just our futile attempts to try to label. It's kind of like if you label something or if you measure something, you feel like you actually understand it, even though you don't.
I think this is that moment when all those safe ideas of objectivity are being blown out of the water. And we're seeing an art that is, in some really interesting ways, confronting that.
All right. So how do you think about the Dali's painting? Any thoughts? It's kind of hard to understand someone's dreamlike work of art because it expressed the artist ego. All right, so let's move on to the next surrealist artist, René Magritte. The René Magritte was a Belgian surrealist artist. He became well known for creating several witty and thought-provoking images, and often depicting ordinary objects in an unusual context. His work is known for challenging observers' preconditioned perceptions of reality. So this is his work. This piece depicts a scene of raining men, nearly identical to each other, dressed in dark overcoats and bowler hats, who seems to be either falling down like raindrops, floating up like helium balloons, or just stationed in middle-air, as no movement or motion is implied. The backdrop features red roofed buildings and a mostly blue, partly cloudy sky, lending credence to the theory that the men are not raining. Like this painting, many of surrealists' interest in masked disguises and what lies beyond or beneath visual surfaces. So the surrealism offered a personal solution to life during the years following the trauma of World War I. But in the view of many artists, society, and possibly even human nature itself had to be transformed so that such a horror would not happen again. That art could play a central role in bringing about a better society was 19th century ideas. Yet it found renewed application after World War I in a collective approach. In the arts, idealism encourages imagination and attempts to realize a mental conception of beauty, a standard of perfection juxtaposed to aesthetic naturalism and realism. The artist of this title reduced art to essential geometric shapes and the primary colors like this, believing that these were a universal understood visual language. And the most famous artist associated with this title was Piet Mondrian. So this is Piet Mondrian. He is a Dutch painter, and he is known for being one of the pioneers of 20th century abstract art, as he changed his artistic direction from figurative painting to an increasingly abstract style, until he reached a point where his artistic vocabulary was reduced to simple geometric elements. Mondrian's art was highly utopian and was concerned with a search for universal values and aesthetics. So this is his work of art styles. So as the years progressed, the lines began to take precedence over forms in Mondrian's paintings. In the 1930s, he began to use thinner lines and double lines more frequently, punctuated with the few small colors forms, if any at all. The double lines like this particularly excited Mondrian, for he believed that offered his paintings a new dynamism, which he was eager to explore. So I'm gonna share a video.
From skyscrapers to
Okay. All right, so I'm going to share a video to show his work is using for lots of field, lots of industrial field, because he can be he's just called like a father of modern design. So like you can see, his work is used for the fashion design.
These bold colors and grids are the hallmark of artist Piet Mondrian. But the same artist, still known today for his instantly recognizable patterns, started out painting these. This summer, an exhibit at the Gemeente Museum in The Hague traces Mondrian's path from that to this. Benno Temple, the museum's director, explains.
So in the Netherlands, there has always been a very strong tradition in landscape painting, dating back from the 17th century. And it was almost a golden rule. The horizon was low, so you had 1/3 of the painting being a landscape and 2/3 of the painting being sky with the famous Dutch clouds.
But even in his early career, Mondrian is ready to break the rules.
He has this early painting around 1900, a ditch by a farm, a landscape with the horizon very high, so there's almost no sky. And there is a tree standing in the foreground of the painting, dividing the painting into, you could almost say, squares and lines.
In 1911, Mondrian moves to Paris, where the Cubist painters Georges Braque and Pablo Picasso influenced Mondrian to experiment with increasingly abstract styles. In 1915, Mondrian returns to the Netherlands and joins the Laren Artist Colony, where he befriends two artists who push him even further toward abstraction. Together, these three participate in the founding of the De Stijl movement. Like many artistic movements at the time, this group tried to make a definite break from the past. No more Dutch clouds and windmills for these guys. Mondrian calls his style at this time neoplasticism. Mondrian writes,
"This new plastic idea will ignore the particulars of appearance. On the contrary, it should find its expression in the abstraction of form and color, that is to say, in the straight line and the clearly defined primary color."
It all boils down to straight lines and primary colors, the signature Mondrian look you see in stores and on runways today. But despite how far Mondrian's style evolved from Dutch landscapes, it's still possible to see connection to his early works.
Although they're completely different, one is figurative, the other is abstract. You see that it's almost the same division of picture planes. And it's not done on purpose, it's done by intuition.
All right. So he just focused on the unusual composition of the traditional work of art style, and then he made that into very simple and geometrical and the just essential colors in his work of art. So that's it for this chapter. And we have a sketchbook project, which is the last one of the course. So everyone, this is the last sketchbook project we are going to do over this. So all right. So the last project is transformational self-portrait drawing. Let's see what it is. This project is related to the modern art we learned this week. So we learned the history of Western art, and we saw it. We saw that it shows it dynamic changes for thousands of years. But when we just highlight centuries, we can simply divide into two big threads of art styles. The representational art and non-representational art. So the representational art is just like this, the Leonardo da Vinci's painting. So it is a type of recording in which the scenery information about a physical object is described in a medium. So that is the representational art style. This is an observational or figurative art style. So there are lots of representational self-portrait in the history of Western art. Let me show you the examples. So like the Rembrandt self-portrait painting and Chuck Close's representational self-portrait painting. This is an acrylic painting. And this is Frida Kahlo's self-portrait with exotic background, and Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait, and Salvador Dali's self-portrait. So now let's see what the non-representational art styles. So this types of art is called non-representational art. So there are many styles of non-representational art. So it can be abstract or non-figurative or non-objective or non-realistic and imaginary art styles. So let me show you the non-representational self-portrait styles. So this is a Chuck Close, another self-portrait in the non-representational way. So he used the abstract motifs to paint himself. And here is very aggressive abstract self-portrait. Can you guess whose self-portrait is? Can you guess?
Is that Picasso?
Picasso, yes, very good. So it's definitely Cubism style of self-portrait, which is made by Pablo Picasso. And this is Basquiat's self-portrait style. So we learned many of modern artists already mastered traditional, in other words, representation art style. They mastered, like Pablo Picasso, the realistic art styles. But because of the photographs, the invention, they abandoned the traditional art style and sought to the new styles of art. So these are the Pablo Picasso's works. So we can see his work changes and the process. So again, the camera developed around here in the modern era, and there are many diverse art movement arose, and the art movement is called avant-garde, means newest art. So we learned realism, impressionism, post-impressionism before the avant-garde, right? And still, these are based on the observational styles. And after avant-garde, we learned Fauvism, expressionism, another expressionism artist, and Cubism, Dada, Surrealism, and Idealism. So now we are going to do transformational self-portrait drawing based on what we learned in this modern art chapter. So let's see the work process. So step one, draw yourself in representational style. or you can just take a picture of yourself as the representational style of art. And step 2, choose one of the modern art style after avant-garde. We just saw 7 art movements, the abstract art movement, right? Choose one of them. And step 3, transform your representational style, self-portrait drawing or picture into the non-representational style of art based on the modern art style you choose on a new sheet of sketchbook. And step 4, finish the abstract self-portrait and color it. And please show 2 different styles of self-portrait when you submit with short description and which modern art movement style you apply.
Do you have some examples?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So for this project, you will need a sketchbook, pencil, eraser, color medium, and camera, like a smartphone. So please post the 2 styles of your self-portrait, not representational. You can be, you can just take a picture of yourself for this representational style of art, and the non-representational style of self-portrait with the short description. And please write which modern art style you apply into your non-representational self-portrait. So again, so there are non-representational self-portrait style options: Fauvism, Expressionism, Cubism, Dada, Surrealism, and Idealism. So the representational self-portrait styles are so popular. So and you can just take a picture of yourself instead of drawing yourself. So I will just show you the abstract self-portrait examples. So this is a Cubism style of self-portrait, and another Cubism style self-portrait, and Cubism style, another Cubism style, and this one is an Expressionism style of self-portrait, and another Expressionism style, just showing someone is feeling through the work of art, and another Expressionism, and the Cubism, another Cubism style. I guess this one is a mixed styles like Cubism and Expressionism, and Fauvism, another Fauvism style, and here's also Fauvism style or Expressionism style. And this one is a Surrealism style and Expressionism, also Expressionism style. And this one is the Surrealism style and Dada style and Expressionism style. Just made with all the lines. It's very nice. And Expressionism style, and it can be the Cubism style. So that's it. So these are all the abstract self-portrait styles. So you can just make, get some inspiration when you make your non-representational self-portrait. Any question about this project?
So
yeah.
So you said we're submitting 2.
Yes, submitting 2. So one is going to be your just picture. You don't need to draw representational style of art. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just a picture. And
Okay,
the other one is is the abstract drawing. All right,
so when we submit it to you, we have to submit both of them.
both of them, please.
Okay,
So when you're ready to post to your work process, please go to week 13, go to 13.2. Please post to your work process here by tonight. And again, this one is the last project, last sketchbook project of the course. So we've made 7 pieces, right? 7 pieces of artwork over this course. And you're gonna just submit 5 of them to get the full point. And I need you to, finish all of your artwork from now on, because you're gonna submit your artworks by the May 3rd. So if you can just submit 5 of them to get the full point, and if you submit all the 7 pieces, then you will get the extra point on the final grade. So please keep in mind.